Hello, Bill.
Hi, Ron. You all right, mate?
I'm doing all right. It is good talking to you for the first time today. I really
It
first.
always is, mate.
How are you doing over in Wrexham land?
I've been full of cold for the last week or so.
Ooh,
Luckily, not COVID, but just my face probably looks a bit bloated. I'm a bit like I'm still a bit run down, but we
yeah.
soldier on, mate, don't we?
So we are looking at Salford City FC today, and I don't know if you would classify them as a new club, even though they're an old club. They're kind of a rebranded club, if you will,
Mm.
with their restart in 2014 with the takeover that they had of their own. I'm gonna pitch it to you because you know these household names way better than I do. Who is Salford City?
So I suppose the best way to describe Salford, and I kind of said this to you on WhatsApp yesterday, that if you were a neutral and you had like a sliding scale, like a spectrum of clubs that you hate for not for rivalry, but just for the sake of their existence, and you had us on this end as the rich people that you're kind of jealous of. You've got a little bit of respect for them, but ultimately you're annoyed that they've gotten rich and they're doing well. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got MK Dons who basically destroyed a club to form their own club. Salford are kind of in the middle of
Mm,
both of us because they have rich household names, or they're household names in the UK who own them, and we'll get onto them in a little bit. And they've also, as you sort of alluded to in 2014, kind of completely rebranded their identity based on those owners. So for it to sort of make sense, you kind of have to explain Salford as a place. Salford is a I can't remember if it classes a town or a city, but it's a bit like how Birkenhead is to Liverpool. When we talked about everybody who watched the Tranmere episode, it's a really similar sort of thing in that Salford is a satellite town just outside Manchester.
classified
Um,
as a city. Just looked it up.
classified as
So
yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's big. Yeah, it's big. I didn't know whether it was a town or a city but yeah, that doesn't really surprise me. Um, but weirdly, in terms of sport, Salford have got their own rugby league club, the Salford Red Devils, and a lot of people from Salford support them. But they also support Manchester United because you can get from certain parts of Salford to Old Trafford quicker than if you were in another part of Manchester. So Salford is that close. It's literally
Mm,
you can walk across a bridge and you go from Manchester to Salford, and it's like walking distance, and I stayed in a hotel near Old Trafford a couple of years ago. I knew they were close, but I'd never actually been. And we literally walked to Salford and then walked back just because we had to go somewhere in Salford.
mm.
Like, I can't remember where exactly. So it really is close. And most people in Salford would support Manchester United, or they wouldn't be football fans. They'd either support Salford Red Devils or they'd be a cricket fan or whatever. But they always had an amateur club, and they were a kind of like non-league stalwarts. Their sort of level was two below the National League, so they were in the Northern Premier, and they just kind of they kind of always sort of floated around in that area. Now, come 2014, it was 2014. You did see you'd look. It was about 2014, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe
That's
so.
wild, isn't it? The class of '92 purchased Salford City. So the class of '92, for those who don't know, are a collection of ex-Manchester United players who were youth players in '92 that kind of went through the entire system and ended up winning the treble with Man United. So that's Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, Phil Neville, Gary Neville, and probably the most famous in the US, David Beckham. Probably one of the most famous footballers even to this day in the US, isn't he? His kind of his footballing ability was really good, but he kind of transcended the sport in the way LeBron James does in basketball or Tiger Woods does in golf, where everyone sort of knows David Beckham's name, don't they? They associate it with the sport, but they may not really know much about him. Now, I think in the day-to-day running, David Beckham probably doesn't have a lot to do with it, but he's in that consortium of those players that were part of Manchester United who decided they wanted a project of taking a club from the lower leagues and bringing them into the Football League. And Salford makes sense because they all played for Manchester United. Most of them were raised in Manchester, not all of them, or the surrounding areas. Salford were this club on a decent bit of land with a ground that wasn't big, but there was a lot of space around it, so they could redevelop it into a new ground. We'll get onto that later. So it just made a lot of sense, really. When they came in, it was slightly controversial. A lot of people who supported Salford kind of did so because they enjoyed that lower level of football. They liked being able to just walk to the game, pay their £2 or £3, watch the game and go home. They weren't interested in supporting a football league club because there's loads around Manchester, and there's Manchester United just down the road. If you want to support a big club, they are just there. It also didn't help that they completely changed the colour scheme from orange and white to red, white and black, which is Man United colours, which is the link to the players there. I will say, in fairness, I didn't know this myself, but after doing a little bit of research, I don't think Salford have ever really properly had a set colour. So I think they were orange for the longest out of anything. But like in the 70s or 80s, they played in green and they played in blue. And I don't think it's like quite like if you took Wrexham and tried to put them in a blue kit. There's yeah, okay, we were in blue until the 30s, but that red's been for a longer time than anything else. Whereas I think Salford did sort of chop and change a little bit at one point. But their fans weren't particularly happy, but I think overall, generally, it's it's kind of just been maybe not ignored, but they've decided to put it past them because they had two or three promotions in the space of 2 or 3 years. Went from the Northern Premier to the National League North. I don't know whether it was straight away, but eventually made their way to the National League and then went up in the same year through the playoffs. So they haven't moved up from League Two since, but the year after they got out of the National League, they won the I don't know whether it's still called the Papa John's now. I heard the other day that they've changed the sponsorship, but the EFL trophy. So they've had a lot of success in the sort of 5 years after Gary Neville and co took over the club. They also made a documentary about it. So that's where that kind of like they've stolen the identity of Salford, and like MK Dons did, but they've also got that documentary side that we've got and the rich owner side of it. They spent a lot of money to get up. So they're not particularly well liked because they just, there's a big thing in UK football that if a club doesn't have history, like generally they're just kind of looked down upon. It's not seen as like a positive thing to have money pumped in. Even if there's a success story, there's like, it's just kind of like culturally not what we do. We like teams to kind of like either be successful organically or have always been a big club because of attendances and stuff like that, which I think is why Wrexham get a lot of flack. I mean, excuse me. I think, we sort of get away with it a little bit because historically we have kind of been a League Two, League One club, but people don't like us because they kind of see it as not being organic. I don't know why, but I can sort of understand it, but that's the sort of idea. But when Salford came up to the National League, they signed a player called Adam Rooney, no relation, and gave him $4,000 a week, which was at the time, we've probably matched that now. The man just over my shoulder is probably on about that roughly. But, at the time that was a lot of money, and he'd come from Aberdeen, who were in the Scottish Premier League, to go and play in the National League. They kind of set the precedent for us to go and follow, really, on spending money on big players and bring them down to our division. So yeah, that's the modern history of Salford in a nutshell. But I can't say I know a huge amount about their amateur days, just because there's probably not really a lot of information out there about it, is there?
Yeah, and I was looking into it, and then I got trapped into the docuseries, the documentary, and I started watching that as well. And having the hindsight of watching Welcome to Wrexham and like Sunderland Till You Die or Sunderland Till I Die. But seeing these different ones, you see this one and it's kind of like it lacks. I don't know if it's like culture or heart or spirit. It's just it is so much more cut and dry of these are business people who aren't as involved into the community or the town or the city. And they're coming in and they're like, yeah, it'd be cool to make Manchester United Part 2. Wouldn't that be cool if we took a team that wasn't Manchester United and we made them Manchester United Part 2 and then bring in some bigger money and we're not really the controlling party anymore?
It's quite sterile, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder if it made it harder for them to have such a transparent documentary where you could tell everybody else's lives that this the people that were, the class of 92, this didn't appear to be as important to them in their lives as Wrexham appears to be important to Rob and Ryan, where, they've bought into the town and bought into the people. And I don't know, you have more background if that played into maybe part of the approach of Wrexham of like, hey, we can't do what they did, where they walk in and then pump in money, buy 1-year contracts or half-season contracts for a lot of players and a lot of players on loan. And it's unsustainable because you don't have a core team that you can build and like rise with.
I think there's a couple of factors there. I think the marketing around the docuseries for Salford and like, the interviews and stuff they did around the time did play up on the fact that they were all sort of Manchester Salford lads growing up. So maybe you don't see it as much in the actual show, but it was a big thing. They're like, oh, look, some of us, we're all from this sort of area. We want to make a Manchester club a big thing. But you are right. It was very much let's make Man United 2.0. And it was, I think that also doesn't help in endearing them to people who aren't already too enamored by them as a club. Do you know what I mean? I think the fact that if they'd still been playing in orange and there was a bit more to it and there was a bit more character that was related to Salford, I think people would have bought into it a lot more. But it's like, no, you got these ex-United players who just want to make a lower league Man United. It also doesn't help that they don't talk about it a lot, but there's an owner called someone who didn't buy in with them straight away, but he's a hotel developer called Peter Lim. I think he's either Thai or Vietnamese, but I'm
Singaporean.
Singapore, right? Okay.
Yeah.
He either owns or part owns Valencia, and he's not very popular with the Valencia fans. They don't like him at all. But he was also involved in some like there's a documentary series called Dispatches in the UK, which is like all the episodes are one-off episodes and they sort of go into the background of something dodgy that's happening. So they've done one on Scientology and I think Dispatches done one on Scientology. It might have been Panorama, actually. Panorama's the BBC one, and then Channel 4 have got Dispatches. I always get both of them mixed up, but one of them did one about Peter Lim anyway, and his involvement in potentially trying to buy football clubs. And while there was nothing conclusive that came out of it, he doesn't really seem like the most kosher of characters, shall we say. And the theory was allegedly, and I'm not saying this is what has happened because it hasn't yet, but a lot of people were concerned that Salford City ground is on like a really, really valuable patch of land that could be turned into hotels to feed into Manchester. So it could be advertised as like a luxury hotel that you stay in Salford, you can go to Manchester. The idea was to make Salford successful enough as a club that they can turn around and go, you know what, this ground's not big enough. We're getting 5,000 every week. We're in League One. We're going to be in the Championship. We need to move grounds now. They go and move to somewhere like on an industrial estate or somewhere that's not very not very valuable, and then they can sell the land of the ground. And then they go, all right, that's it. We're done with the club now. We've done everything we can. Let's sell it on to someone else. And they've made their money from the hotel. But that would be, if I said that that's definitely what happened, I'm sure that's probably like slanderous or libelous. So let's just say, that was allegedly.
Yeah.
I don't think that it might not actually be the case, but you can sort of see why someone who is a multi-millionaire, possibly even, I don't know, he might even be a billionaire, but what why is he interested in a provincial lower league club? It's a bit strange.
Yeah.
But then I suppose you could say that about Wrexham as well. What's Ryan Reynolds doing, wanting to be involved in Wrexham? So maybe I'm being a little bit harsh there, but
well, Wrexham, it's so centralized. It's a hub of commerce and industry within the UK. So that land where the race course is, I can see, the parallels to Manchester where, it's just waiting for Ryan and Rob to get it to a certain level. And then you flip that over and oh my goodness. Oh man. What was Wrexham was known for manufacturing everything in the UK. I think it was. So
every single piece of everything in Wrexham Court.
Yeah. Which we see through the ruse. We know what Rob and Ryan are up to. We know it. But I think it's also good that maybe the best thing you can say about somebody like Lim, is it he was never convicted of any crimes. So
Yeah, well, so
did he do those? Well, he was never convicted. So there's that. There's that. Well, and I think according to the documentary, he came on later, and so I don't know what the impetus was. You know, they started out with the four of them without David Beckham, because where I'm at in the documentary, I haven't got too far into it, but David Beckham's not part of it. So I'm assuming he comes on later then and comes on as an investor.
I'm not even 100% certain whether he comes on during the documentary, and that's something that's just happened a little bit later in time, but I'm not. I could be. It's been years since I watched it when it came out. It's like 5 years ago or whatever. So yeah, I can't remember exactly, but it also doesn't help that while all those players are footballing legends, they've all got a bit of a murky they've got a weird sort of past about them. So
really,
yeah. Where shall I start? Nicky Butt recently got arrested for domestic abuse. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check that. I don't know whether it was anything too serious, but he got arrested for it. Let me double check. Paul Scholes. This is maybe not as family. So yeah, the case was discontinued after no evidence was found. Apologies. So it was an alleged domestic abuse. But these things, it's not fair, but even if someone's innocent, there's always a stink around them, isn't there, after something like that happens? Do you know what I mean? So, I don't know the scenario there. There was no evidence, so maybe nothing happened, but yeah, that's not good. Paul Scholes, the other players, owners involved, was recently a video was released of him biting his adult daughter's toenails. That's kind of a creepy one. I'll leave that one there. Let people do their own research on that one.
Why? I didn't need that in my head. I didn't need it.
It's a very strange clip. Ryan Giggs is probably the worst out of the lot of them. He cheated on his wife with his sister-in-law for 8 years. Yeah, 8 whole years they managed to keep it going. The same brother whose wife he was sleeping with, Rodri, used to be an ex Salford captain and manager. So it's almost as if his brother's come in and nicked his brother's club off him as well as his wife. Oh. He recently got found not guilty. No, it wasn't not guilty. There wasn't enough evidence for the case to continue for him headbutting a woman. So he was a philanderer and potentially domestic abuse.
Not convicted. Okay. See, there's a running line between all of these. They never have been convicted of these things.
Yeah.
So if you wonder what money can buy you in life, it can buy you non-convictions left and right all day.
And again, Ryan Giggs might not have done anything in terms of the physical side. He's been not convicted, so we can't say he has done anything. But he definitely did cheat on his wife for a very long time, with his sister-in-law. So, yeah.
And he's the better of them, right? Well, he only cheated on his wife, so.
Phil Neville was just a bit of a useless footballer, so that makes him the worst out of the lot of them.
And that's Gary's brother.
Yes, that's Gary. Yeah, known as Gary's brother as well. And he sort of he managed England women's team sort of not incredibly successly. He actually seems like quite a nice bloke, to be fair, but he was managing Inter Miami not too long ago. I don't know if he still is, which is David Beckham's team.
Well, and I think Gary, I think the Neville brothers both went in money-wise into that too.
Did they? Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and Gary, I quite like Gary. He's a pundit on TV, and he gets involved with political stuff, and he's not to everyone's taste in terms of his politics, but I think he speaks a lot of sense, and I like his punditry work. But he can also be a hypocrite because he does talk about how money's ruining the game and stuff like this, and you can't just keep buying players and sacking managers. But he seems like the one that's most heavily involved in Salford, who's okayed sacking a lot of managers and okayed buying a lot of players. So there's an element of hypocrisy when he does talk about his punditry, and then he goes and does what he does with Salford. So Salford fans, I'm willing to hear a rebuttal, because I must admit I am hearing only ever heard one side of the story with a lot of these things. So, fair enough, there might be more to it than what I think, but there's a lot of history going on with those owners and that club.
Well, and it sounds like they've done everything wrong that you could without imploding the team yet. The team still exists. They've been maybe stuck in League Two for 4 years now. Is it maybe 4 years? And to your point on that first episode or first part of the documentary, Gary's the one who makes the call to the other four and says, so are we sacking the manager or not? He just opens it up, and it's like, I think he says, is anybody opposed to sacking the manager? And I think after that, they end up, within a short period of time in between that 5 years and 2 promotions, or it was 5 years and 3 promotions, they sacked 4 different managers in between that time, which for getting promotions and stuff seems like a lot. That seems like a lot of managers to go through.
It's like every time Wrexham have had a sticky patch recently and people start saying, "Ooh, is Phil Parkinson the right man for the job?" And then he goes and proves everybody that he is the right man for the job. They've pulled the trigger at those points with whoever was their manager. Now, I'm not saying whoever they've had would have been successful, but they've just not been given that time to find out. And funny club, really, really funny club. There was. Do you know the meme format of Andy from Toy Story dropping Buzz? And it's like, I don't want to play with you anymore. And then they put a caption on Andy and a caption on Woody. There was a big Salford were like the media darlings for a period. So the Sky Sports here in the UK always wanted Salford on TV, because it was like, oh, look, it's Salford. There's this beautiful.
That's what Gary's a part of, right? He's like a pundit on Sky. Yeah. So yeah.
But I did see a funny meme once that had like Andy had like a Sky Sports on it, and then the Woody had like the Salford badge, and it was like just trying to say that like Sky Sports don't want to play with Salford anymore now. Wrexham exists, basically, because it's only what Wrexham news all the time.
Oh man, yeah. I wonder how they feel. The fans, but also the leadership about Wrexham. I know that Gary has spoken nicely about Wrexham in the past, saying that Rob and Ryan are doing it the right way, where they've made mistakes in the past. And so whatever that means by saying they're doing it the right way, he's at least spoken in a positive nature about Wrexham. But I wonder how the fans feel and the supporters, because there's got to be a percentage of the supporters that were, there when they were shit, when they were when they were the Ammies, the amateurs, and then went forward with them. I wonder, it's at times has to test your loyalty to the club when you have random people coming in, investors who might have other motives for joining your club, but trust the leadership. Yes, we gave them 50% control of the club, but trust us, trust your leadership. We're still in control here. We might have bought into Inter Miami, a few of us, and are riding the Messi train down there, but trust us, trust the leadership here. I mean, it's a strange one, because I think football fans and British people in general by nature are quite cynical. And I think it would be a lie, and we'd be glossing over reality if we said that some people in Wrexham haven't been turned off by the whole Hollywood thing. There's a lot of people, it's like it's not for them. They don't want any attention or media attention or glitz and glamour. It's just, I kind of think it's misguided when it comes to Wrexham. But I can certainly see if you support, if you're from an area and you support a team that are amateur because you like amateur football, like I said previously, you could go to United down the road. But then if you don't want to go to United, there's Stockport, there's Oldham, there's Bury, there's Rochdale. They've all these clubs that aren't that far from Manchester. You purposely go in to watch amateur football if you go to watch Salford, or used to be when you used to go and watch Salford. So I could definitely see that there's probably a fair few people who used to go a lot who just haven't got any interest in it anymore. And they get thousands now. So they've clearly started to attract new fans that probably only know Salford as the club they are now. So I don't know. They haven't really got the most vocal of fan bases on Twitter. So
That's kind of like my only frame of reference, really. So I don't know. It's a funny one, isn't it? Be interesting to see, because the fans of opposition clubs always come out the woodwork, don't they? Just before and just after you've played them. So it'll be interesting to see what the kind of reactions like after Saturday.
Yeah, I'll see who.
Well, at the moment, either are they? So
yeah, well, and I think they've won their last two. Was it
right? They like 13th or something like that, though. Were they?
Yeah, and they're.
I mean, it's still early days, but
yeah, they won their last three, and
right, okay.
Matt Smith has 3 goals in the last 2 games. So
okay,
so he's a bit on fire. He had 2 goals against Crew in the 4-2 win, and then 1 against Sutton. And so like
so they might be just starting to hit form now. Then really, mightn't they?
Yeah, well, hopefully not. Hopefully that was just just a little bit of brightness. We should probably talk about where they play, their stadium. And so obviously from the documentary, the stadium looks completely different or way different now than from the very first episode where they were playing, that amateur football where you said, you're paying, a quid or 2 quids to come in and watch a game. And in that episode, there's a group of little kids and I think it's Gary that is talking to him. He's like, "Oh, so how did you guys get in?" And they're like, "Oh, we just came in through, there's a broken part of the fence over there that just dents in. So we walk in." And then he jokingly, he's like, "Well, you owe me, £1.50." And then they move on. But as you could imagine, they probably patched up that fence and we're like, okay, there's people that are just walking in here onto the grounds. But they have a newer ground that was built up. It looks like in stages. I don't know too much about it, though. I'd lend to your expertise if you know more about that.
The only thing I really know about this is on the nice teeing me up, by the way, is for the planning permission when they wanted to build one of the stands, they used a photo of Wrexham fans marching through town because obviously we wear red and white, and it was a behind the crowd shot because there's when is there ever a bunch of Salford fans marching to the ground? So they photoshopped that over the top of a CGI image of the ground. They nicked it from a Wrexham.com article, actually, which was at the time was 5 years old or something. I remember it happening at the time, but my memory was a bit fuzzy. So I did a little research earlier. And I'm sure you'll put the photo up, but they just full blown nicked a photo of a load of Wrexham fans marching through town, and they used it on their social media, on their formal planning application, but they did also use it on their social media as well. And obviously the Wrexham fans were just like, what the fuck. If you look through the comments, someone's put, "Can we have our fans back, please?" Why have you got my picture from 2011 in Wrexham and a laughing face?
Which is so lazy because they should have just nicked Manchester United fans. I mean, was that too close to home? They're like, "Oh, they'll discover this one."
Honestly, I think when it first happened in 2016, it flew under the radar with Wrexham fans just because they weren't in our division, so it wouldn't have even been noticed. But it was about 2 years after that people picked it up because we played them. We were only in the league with them for 1 year. We played them on Boxing Day. I think it was Boxing Day. We beat them 5-1 anyway, but it was a good game. It's when both of us looked like we were going for top spot, and then we fell off and lost in the first leg of the playoffs, and they ended up winning in the playoffs, and Leyton Orient went up as champions. But that tweet didn't really resurface until obviously people are weird, aren't they? There's obviously Wrexham fans were just going through all their Twitter like what can we take the mick out of them? Oh my God, look at that. So
there's some heroes out there. I mean, I don't know how to classify the people. I don't have search skills like that. If someone wants to give me how do you search through everybody's things looking for those specific, are you typing in dirt? What's the key phrase that you're going through on Twitter or X? And you're just like,
no, it's crazy. They'll
dig up stuff. Yeah. From, 10 years ago. And they're like, well, you posted this. Do you remember when you said this? You're like, how did you find that? That's, some of these people are posting, tens of thousands of posts, and those are getting scoured through. And it's
It's
obviously
crazy,
it's
isn't
not
it?
just Twitter, but social media and on the internet. There's some good internet detectives, some good internet sleuths out there.
Well, it's like when when someone like Conor McGregor's a good example. He's always tweeting stuff and then deleting it within minutes, and then like the screenshots go flying. It's like there must just be people who've got so many notifications for different celebrities that they know, like like the setting that you can have to get a notification whenever a celebrity posts. They must just have loads for all different people that they know are controversial, ready to just be the first one to screenshot it and make sure it still exists for the rest of the world.
Yeah, like TMZ out here. And I don't know if you guys have something comparable to TMZ. It's the paparazzi group where they follow celebrities.
I know of it. I don't think we've got our own equivalent really, but I think we just kind of used yours.
Yeah. Well, I know from LA when I lived there that they pay on average of $3,000 to $5,000 for a valid lead. So if you're at a restaurant or you're at a shop and there's a celebrity, they're an A-list celebrity, you can get $3,000 to $5,000. You call in the lead. If they come verify and they get some media coverage, they get some photo or some video, you get paid that. There's an amount that you get paid on the lead, and there's an amount if the lead was fruitful. And so they have their Google alerts set up, but incentivized by paying people. I'm sure that online you could just have bots do it. You just have bots that are triggered to anytime Conor McGregor posts, since he's going to be posting some dumb stuff sometimes, it's just automatically downloading every single one of his posts. Yep. And lucky for Salford or unlucky for them, they shopped in, and obviously I would have shown this photo already. If you were showing your mock-up, why not do what Rob and Ryan did, or what the team that did the mock-up did, where they just had, generic computer generated people in there, and with here's what it could look like, instead of literally going out of your way to crop out and cut out fans from another team and put them on top of it. It seems like way too much work. It
doesn't even look good either, does it? It's not particularly a great look in Photoshop. It's a CGI stand, but with non-CGI people in front of it. Like, just like you say, just CGI the people. Just have some stick men basically just walking.
Yeah. You have a couple of blobs there, like a shadow, a silhouette. Yeah. You didn't have to do that. Yeah. And with their not jumping into crest and badge too much, because there's not much for us to do, but they didn't have to use the new modern MGM logo for their for their badge, which I did look up the limited history, the one line on their crest and badge. And apparently when they got rid of and thank you for teaching me the rampant lion in the stand-up pose, when they got rid of those and replaced it with just the upper part of I think they said the griffin, that the outside cutout is supposed to be the hull of a ship. And that's it. There's nothing else going on with it. That's exactly. No. There's no more. If you want some rich history, you'll have to look at their old badge.
One thing I will say though that is quite a nice touch. I am trying my hardest to fish for any sort of positive. They don't always like being negative about clubs. Their floodlights on their new ground have like the outline of the badge sort of in red around the floodlights. The floodlights sort of shape of it, so that looks kind of cool, I guess.
Was that intentional, or did they get the shape of that after they got the floodlights? Because
that wouldn't surprise me.
Because in the first, the documentary, they show the floodlights first, but they don't mention anything about the shape of that being the shape of the new badge.
Right.
And so I don't know. I mean, I haven't got to the part in the documentary where they talk about the new logo, because the new logo hasn't been introduced yet. But they did get the new floodlights with that, the angular metal. And but maybe I'll get there. Maybe I'll have the attention to continue on, because it is entertaining, because it's like seeing where they're at now. They've had some success, right? They've been promoted 3 times. They're doing what Wrexham is trying to do in that regard. But they're also, I don't know, it's like the big brother thing, where you have the older sibling who kind of makes the pitfalls before you, and you get to learn vicariously without you going through those same missteps by watching somebody else. And so you alluded to it before. Was it Port Vale that did a restructuring, and then we kind of saw how their fans bought out.
Well, no, who was it? Would have been Wimbledon.
Wimbledon did it, and I thought there was another one in the south of.
Portsmouth followed our model.
Oh, Portsmouth followed us. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you have these other teams that are sometimes the new people, the novelty, that are learning and getting the hard knocks before you have to. And then sometimes it's your team that's getting the hard knocks. And so we're kind of in this really good sweet spot where we've seen what Salford has done. And it's like, okay, if we're going to step in and do anything, we can't do it exactly like that. You could take the wins and the positives where you get some good strikers, you get some good players, and you build a core around them. And I think going forward, the blueprint from Wrexham, as far as right now, is you get a good manager in with a good ethos, and that's going to matter the most. As we talked before about Phil Parkinson's no plonker, it's if you have that good direction and that good culture, then you can build a team that carries on, as opposed to just having hired guns that come in for a season or something like that, and they're gone and they don't really have any loyalty to the club. I know everyone out there that hates Wrexham is screaming Ben Foster right now. Okay, you can scream Ben Foster, but tell me Ben Foster doesn't love the club. Tell me Ben Foster didn't buy into the ethos and the culture of the club, and that he's still not emotionally invested into the club. I would be surprised if we never saw Ben Foster at the race course again. That would shock me.
Yeah. Same here. He'll be around for a big FA Cup game or something. I wouldn't even be surprised if they get him doing some punditry work if they've got Wrexham on TV for whatever reason. I think the two documentaries and the two models are really like, it's a classic case of British cynicism versus American optimism. So like the way Salford is run as a club and their ownership model and the way their documentary was done is a very British way of doing things. It's like, it's not ineffective, it's worked for the most part for them. But you can tell Gary Neville and that they come from football, they're too into football, and they take that sort of British football mentality. Whereas, Rob and Ryan are, for better or worse, constantly asking, why not? Why can't we do that? Why can't we get to the Premier League? Why can't we build the stand quicker? Why can't we do this? And I think that's not, there's not really a case for which one is better or worse. I just think you guys are a lot more, let's try it and see if it fails. And we're a lot more like, that's going to fail, so let's not try it.
Yeah. Well, fair argument, because at a lot of ways we're like the teenagers of countries of the world, where we're cockstrong and ready to go, where like we out there at sometimes are too naive to know that we're getting into trouble, but then also too naive to have backed down, and then we accomplish things that other people would have been too afraid to accomplish, or they would have accepted defeat earlier on from having history of a country that's been around for over 1,000 years or something like that, where people have been there, they've been through it. You guys have been part of football so many times that you've seen the letdown where you're like, well, I need to temper my expectations so that I don't get burned again where I've been burned in the past. And then
it's the hope that kills you, Ran.
Yeah. And then we walk in and we're like, well, why not just, wear some fire retardant clothing? Why not just carry a fire extinguisher with you? I mean, if you know you could get burned, why accept that? Just be prepared to put the fire out and then move on. And then I can definitely see the two parts, and I can definitely see where more of a history can help you with wisdom and making good decisions and solid decisions, but it also can be a hindrance from defeating yourself before you've even entered into the fight or into the race. And to be fair, I can see where the lack of experience can hurt you, because you can walk into something, and Rob and Ryan, I don't think have done it quite yet, but they could accidentally make a mistake at some point in time and put out a post or put out a thing. And
I think a lot of little things have happened like that. Nothing that you couldn't class as anything other than teething problems, and obviously it's difficult to, when it's communications or when it's decisions at the club, you don't know who has made, Rob and Ryan are always going to be the face of it, but there's always, who has made that decision, you don't really know. I think one thing that at the start that they did that was a bit of a misstep, luckily they didn't carry on with it, was the there was a big message of like, why can't Wrexham be your second team? So it doesn't matter if you already support someone, make Wrexham your second team. And like, that's just like British people are like, nope. No, I've got one team. Some people are two-team people. Like, I wouldn't say go as far as to say I'm a two-team person, but I've got a lot of affinity, and I've sort of watched Villa from afar just because my dad's family are all Villa fans. But you put a gun to my head and it's Wrexham every time. It's not. You can't really convince a British person to have a second team. Whereas I think an American football fan who supports Chelsea or Arsenal or United or whatever, you haven't got your roots in the area, so it's different for you to have like, oh yeah, I like United, but I like Wrexham too. Yeah, just like I'd be like, oh, I like the Lakers, and I don't mind the Chicago Bulls as well, because what difference does it make to me? I'm not from the area, don't really pay attention to it that much. So I think that wouldn't have necessarily been a bad message for the US, but over here it just didn't. I mean, we were ridiculed for that big time.
Well, and we wouldn't have known, to us being the Nicky Butt of monogamy in sports teams, we didn't understand that was a thing. We thought, what, there's a lot of love in this world, and you could just give it to whoever you wanted to. We we didn't know that you should have been one team monogamous. I mean, to be fair, it doesn't sound like the greatest thing in retrospect, but when they're kicking it off at first, you always have like those media teams that get together and go, what is going to be like our tagline, and what is going to be the thing that we push forward? And maybe it is part of you've already accepted a loss up front, and you're like, well, look, we're not going to be their first team, so why don't we just go out and say, no, I'm taking it back. You shouldn't say that. You walk up into the game and say, oh yeah, you know what? I would just like to get second place this year.
Yeah. I could definitely see the logic to it though, and I could understand the thought process, and I do think we probably have won some people over who would look out for our results and stuff now. It's just the second team thing is it's controversial for some reason over here. You'll often see if someone's got two teams in their bio on Twitter, whenever they get into an argument with someone else on Twitter, like, oh, shut up, you two-teamer.
Yes, yeah.
It's pointless, really, but it's just, yeah.
Well, that's that tribalism that we spoke about before, the us versus them. And you're like, well, you can't be too many of the thems, because when I want to argue with you, I know my them that I'm upset with right now, and you're too many of them. So that's not going to work.
Because I like one of your thems, but I don't like the other them. And
well, and I don't know, are we a them to Salford even? I mean, obviously,
no, I don't even know if they've got any rivals, to be honest. Really, they may have had teams. They've come through the ranks that quickly, but also have absolutely no history above our division. That I just think it's hard to even suggest that they have a rival. Do you know what I mean? It's not quite. It's a weird one.
They did a survey. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It was just like, if we were to get into the Championship, it would kind of be like, we're always going to have Chester. Don't get me wrong, but it would be like, who is it now? Who do we look to now? Because all of even like our secondary rivals, they're all in League Two or League One. I think once we get beyond that, unless some of them come up with us, it's going to be a bit like, well, who's the big game now? Do we pick on Everton or Liverpool because they're down the road? Yeah. They're not going to care about us. So it's Well, and I think they're probably going through a similar sort of thing to that themselves, really, just on a different scale.
Well, MK Dons, who they were just hated. Is there ever going to be a point in time where there's a true rivalry with MK Dons outside of AFC Wimbledon, where it's not just hating them because they are who they are? Because can you say that MK Dons has other true rivalries? Or if everyone just hates one team, is that a rivalry, or you're just the only a-hole in the room? Like I have a rivalry with you. No, we all just hate you. Like read the room. It's not a rivalry. You're just a jerk. Whereas there's people that are coming up, like you said, right now, where we're playing with them in leagues, and maybe Notts County will be a true rivalry in 5 years if we keep on rising together and battling each other. And
possibly,
maybe that
It's
develops. But
it'd be an interesting one. Did you say something about a survey then? Sorry, before I cut you off.
oh,
Their
okay.
fans surveyed, were they?
So there was a fan survey, and their results were non-conclusive. That there wasn't any true rivalries, and nobody considered them a rival. And
Yeah.
so exterior fans looking in, no one clocked them as a rivalry. And I think the only one that they kind of had a sentiment to was Leyton Orient from losing in that round, and that was like the closest thing
similar to us and Notts and us and Stockport, really. Then same sort of thing where it was purely from a title race rather than yeah, makes sense. I mean, Salford's close enough to Wrexham that if they were to get to the Championship with us and we had a few ding dong battles, so to speak, that I'm not saying they'd be a rivals for us, but that's kind of how those things develop. Do you know what I mean? It's
Well, I think we should go with that, and I'm 100% backing you, and I'm going to double up and say yes. Bill just started this new segment. It's called "Can We Make Them a Rival?" And let me tell you this: the first documentary that I started watching on Salford was from 1969, and it basically was a documentary on how depressive Salford was. That it was this walled-in town or city. That was full of pollution from all the industry around there. So it had the highest mortality rate and an incredible amount of, I don't know if lack of culture, but they didn't have a heart to the city. And so the documentary is just basically showing how sad and depressing life is in Salford. So if we're going to kick off a rivalry, okay, first off in the rivalry is, look, would you rather live in Wrexham or Salford? Just a fair question. Would you rather? And if you would live in Salford, well, then you're a rival, and that's the bare minimum. We now have the makings of our rivalry of Salford. I guess part two, whose owners are better than whose? Ours, because we're not even in any scandals. There's no Rob McElhenney scandal, and there's no Ryan Reynolds scandal. Yeah, not convicted. And part three, we had the real estate developers that wanted to pave Paradise and put in a parking lot, but they're gone now. And so we don't have Lim, who would like to take that valuable land and turn it into, apartments or whatever. So I think on the list of takeovers, we're 3 for 3 on the list of what you could do right on a takeover. So what I'm saying is not that we are going to make a rivalry and they're going to become ours, but I think very well we could become their rivalry.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. Yeah, there was when we played them, there was a little bit of that old money versus new money sort of thing, because we were the old bigger club and they were the new dogs coming into town trying to sort of buy the league. And it'd be quite interesting if any of their fans tried to call us money grabbers or anything like that after the stuff that they've pulled over the last couple of years.
You think that would happen though? You think that there would be people, because you have people yell out stuff all the time. You would think that their fans will be calling us, Hollywood FC and.
Oh yeah, no, it's bound to happen. Yeah, it's definitely going to happen at some point. It's
oil stupid. Money or something. Yeah,
oil money. Yeah, which is quite funny actually, because Carlisle, the guy, the kid who said, I feel sorry for him. He's definitely not quite all there, is he? That you've seen the oil money video, haven't you? The oil money video. Oh, there's some kid from Carlisle who's clearly not the sharpest tool, shall I say, without trying to be too harsh about him, saying it. When we bought Aaron Hayden from him, he lost his head and was like, it's oil money Wrexham. They've got all this oil money. So that's kind of where the oil money joke comes from.
No.
He's got a bit of a speech impediment as well, which doesn't help, bless him.
Am I going to feel bad for just playing that? Because I just played it.
It is funny, but I wouldn't want to incite a pile-on. So I'll let people find it for themselves, I reckon.
For the reference, this laugh right now isn't because I just watched it. Okay, but I definitely did just play it, and that is hilarious.
Yeah, it really is. But they've just been bought by American owners, Carlisle. So yeah, he's a fine one to talk.
Well, and I guess this is not unprecedented ground where you have money that comes in, gets poured into a club, and then it depends on what is the strength and character of the club, of the owners, of the people of the town that direct that culture, or let it get completely eroded and then turned into a commercial product and not, this is the historic team that we've been backing and supporting for years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny how teams whose foreign owners get sort of picked on for, with Wrexham, it's becoming Hollywood, but, a lot of other clubs get that for whatever country their owners are from. But then one of the only teams that have changed their colours and changed their history and changed their nickname has been bought by not only British people, but ex-footballers, the people that you think would realise what is sacrosanct about a football club and what isn't, were the ones who came in and gone, yeah, we're changing the kit colour and we're changing the badge and we're changing everything about the club. We're going to come in and change you from amateurs to people that are buying the league. So football's a funny game, Ran. You could probably make a lot of psychiatrists rich if you started getting football fans into therapy.
I would argue against it because you can't have too much therapy out there, or else you won't have too much football. You won't have too many people going out there. It's a double-edged sword. Like, I get my daily dose of Saturday therapy when I get to watch and get my drug addict fix of watching Wrexham. I wouldn't want to have that taken away. Like, how dare I walk into a place and somebody sorts out what's wrong with me, and then I'm fine and content in life, like walking through, you gonna watch a game this weekend? No, I enjoy everything about life. I'm fine. I enjoy everything. I just love nature. The sound that I'm hearing right now is pleasure enough, and I don't need anything else to move on. It's like an age-old adage with actors in Hollywood, where if actors had good therapy, we would probably have no great movies, because they would have worked out all their demons and not been able to pull, the Heath Ledger roles and Joaquin Phoenix and but I mean, in looking to the matchup, that here's my segue of segues of looking to the matchup. Salford, who's coming off of a couple of wins, they're doing okay. They've faced some good teams. They lost to Notts, but kind of who hasn't this season? And they beat Crewe. They've come off a couple of good goal scoring opportunities. Their number one goal scorer, Matt Smith, has 7 goals, like our number one, Elliot Lee. However, Elliot Lee maybe hasn't scored in the last 4 games or 3 games. And so they kind of are coming off on the hot foot, where we've been fighting more. And you had spoke to it before, where you actually, the fight that we had when we're down red cards and down players not playing in their position, and like the grit, where that's actually a positive that you're seeing out there for us.
Yeah, it's you've got to look at those performances and think to go to Mansfield and come away 0-0 when they haven't lost a league game this season, and then you go and lose a man against Crewe. And by the way, it wasn't just a red card for that Crewe game. Like, every decision just went Crewe's way. It was one of the most frustrating games of football I've ever watched in my entire life. To the point when myself and others in the stand were laughing when the ref was making decisions, because it was just like, oh, here he goes again. I don't think it was quite like that at the weekend, in fairness. I think we just put in a really good performance, and Cannon was a bit of a loose cannon. Awful. And but we've come out the other side of 3 really tough games, including 2 away games, and we've got 5 points. So if we go and back it up against Salford at the weekend, that's a good run of fixtures in terms of of how we've done. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a test, actually. It's going to be interesting. They've got Curtis Tilt playing for them as a centre-back who used to play for Wrexham. He's gone on and played in the championship and all sorts. He's a very good player. And they've got Declan John, who we've been linked with a lot before we bought McLean. He's the sort of left wing back, Welsh. They think they still have Theo Vassell as well. He's also an ex-Wrexham player. He played under Dean Keats the season when the takeover happened, but got let go. Again, really good centre back, good player, but I don't think he seems to get a lot of game time really at Salford. So they must be pretty good if they can afford to have him on the bench or in the squad. So I don't there's a lot of teams in League Two, Ran, who will now start performing. You might not have had a good start, but that's just what football's like. Sometimes you might have a slow start and then end up in the playoffs at the end, and they've certainly got the capability to look good come the end of the season.
How are you feeling as far as I won't have you do a prediction, but how are you feeling with whatever lineup we might throw out against Salford?
The only position that interests me, I think you start the same team that played against Crawley, unless we have any injuries between now and then. And I don't think a time frame has been put on it, but from the sound of Phil Parkinson's interview after the match, it didn't sound like Mendy's going to be ready for this weekend. He seemed to think it was quite a bad injury, so I don't know. Hopefully he can play, because he's actually looked quite good at right back, even though he's a left back. So that's the position really for me. That what do you do at right back? Because Barnett's still going to be suspended. Ford, it seems like, is injured and might not be quite ready. Do you play McAlinden there? I mean, I like Liam McAlinden, but he's barely a left back, never mind a right back. I know it's a bit harsh, but he's an attacking player. He's not a wing back. He'll play there, but it's not his position. And do you put James Jones there? He looked quite good on the weekend, didn't he? When Cannon got sent off, and it was McLean came off, so he ended up at right back, or whichever way round it was. But I was kind of in a bit of a fever dream during that match. I was dosed up to the eyeball with as many different painkillers as I could, trying to watch it through glazy eyes. I don't know. Who do you think goes at right back, Ran, or who would you start?
I mean, I feel like you have to put Ford there. I feel like that's how you have to start.
It's just if he's available, isn't it? Because he has been injured. Was he? He wasn't, and he wasn't on the bench, was he? So
yeah. So I mean, how close is he to being able to get minutes? Know. And
don't know.
Do you put Jones in, or do you switch up the formation even more? And is there not that Parkinson has ever really done that much of changing around his formation?
I think he's more likely to play Jones or McAlinden there than he is to change formation.
Yeah. But you need people to come in for potential subs, because
definitely.
People could get injured. I mean, we're still sitting on Elliot Lee with 4 yellows, sitting right away from that fifth.
Yeah,
so
he's got to go and get that 5th yellow card sooner rather than later, I think.
Just get it over with, because you got him playing, which people say whatever they want to say, but he could be playing more timid and not challenging, where he likes to take those tackles and he likes to mix in on the game, and he might be being more cautious, which is throwing off part of our attack and our defense. And then who do you put in when Lee's out? And if we've already have Jones out on the right, and now who do we have cover? And then what does our midfield look like? And so, I mean, there's some big question marks out there that Super Phil Parkey is going to be negotiating, because inevitably somebody can get hurt, and somebody else can see another red card. I don't know if we're getting cursed with calls that I don't know. I think the red cards were.
I think the Cannon one was a red card. I think the Barnett one was kind of like, I don't think it was a red, but he definitely gave the ref a bit of a decision, because whenever you go into a 50-50 like Barnett did, you are risking coming out with a card. And I don't think it should have been a red, but just don't go in for a challenge like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
yeah. Like, don't give him the opportunity.
Yeah, the Cannon one, like you look at photos of that and different angles and stuff, and it probably wasn't a red card. But then when you look at where the referee's position is and he's seeing it in real time and the speed he comes in, it's like, probably was a red. It's a silly sort of tackle.
Well, when that starts to happen, do you look at the skipper? Do you look at the manager and say, hey, like, these players need to be playing more disciplined? And
think you would, but maybe not with Phil Parkinson, just because our discipline was so good last year. Got barely any yellow or red cards that I think you've just got to kind of put it down to a bit of bad luck. Give Parkinson the benefit of the doubt. I think if we get another red card the next game, then you're kind of like, yeah, come on now, Phil, sort it out. But I think he's got enough in the bank after us being the. I think we had the best discipline record in the whole division last year.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so right. It's not like it's like we've brought a new manager in whose style is to literally go and break legs. Those managers do exist, like, but it's not his style, is it? It's just kind of like one of those things that's happened. But I'm sure the enthusiasm scale will have been off the charts.
You can only get yelled at so many times, right? Where, like that.
Yeah, true.
Is I don't know. I don't want to start a controversy, but you can only go and be enthusiastic so many times before that rubs off, where it's like, okay, I went out on the pitch and I know I'm going to get yelled at when I go back in, but that's this. I've been through that. I already know. So, I mean, I don't know how, because I'm not in the locker room or the dressing room to witness it, of what the balance is of, calm Parky versus, full volume Parky. And how much, because, people get desensitized. If you're always yelling, then that just becomes normal and it doesn't appear to be a yell anymore. And I'm not saying that the team is undisciplined or something, but I mean, what was that, 7 cards that we had in one match? Or
was that the one against Crewe? Was it
Crewe? Yeah. Was it maybe 5 yellows and a red? I'm not sure. Or
I lost count watching it live. I was just kind of like, oh, here he goes, and another.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the ref definitely seemed to be calling them on a certain team and not giving the equal calls of the same type of play that happened to the other team. But then there is that old thing of, you don't give the rep the opportunity to make the decision. Like, you take that challenge out of their hands. Like, don't leave it in the ref's hands to dictate the game. And like, unfortunately, like we've been on the bad side of that 2 games now with 2 red cards, and I'll knock on some wood that doesn't happen again. That no more red cards. All right. You have a ton of red behind you. I have a ton of red behind me, but let's not see a bunch of red, this next fingers crossed.
Yeah. I think we're going to, I fancy us to win. I think they've been on a good run, but I'm not sure how much it'll last. And I think we're coming on to a bit of stride, but I do think you're right. I think there's a little bit of that. Will the discipline or the referee let us down? We can't afford any more suspensions at the moment. And who plays at right back? Do we change formation? Do we go to 4 at the back and let Aaron Hayden play on the right? Because he's kind of drifted into that role when players have been sent off and look pretty good. So, Mark quite often says on commentary that, when he used to be in the lower leagues before he moved to Carlisle, that Aaron Hayden used to play right wing back. So maybe it's something that you give him a chance. I'd rather not see him in that position because I don't think it's where he plays, but it's an option, isn't it? And we'll see. Roll on Saturday.
Does that ever happen in the EFL where, because of injury, you have a team that changes formation and style for a period of time until the team can get either healed or replace players or whatever it is, until you could be a full squad again? Is the strategy of gameplay altered or changed, or do you keep the same formation?
I think a lot of teams will definitely change their formation based on who's available. I just think Parkinson's just one of, you get a lot of either tactically rigid or tactically flexible managers. And I think Parkinson within a game and the execution of a formation can be quite fluid. Sometimes we'll be knocking it long. Sometimes it'll be quite close passing, or there'll be a press or whatever. How we, in the game that's in my background, when we played Coventry, we didn't play that sort of tactically like that in many other games that season. That was purely for Coventry, but the one thing he doesn't really change is his formation. He just doesn't change it. He will in game, but not. His starting lineup is pretty much always 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, however you'd want to look at it.
Yeah.
So he's just not one of those managers. Whereas I think you get some managers that will tinker every game. Every game will be a different starting lineup and a different formation depending on who they're coming across. So yeah, I think it depends on the player as well. I mean, we saw it when Mullin wasn't fit. They tried sort of playing Elliot Lee just off Sam Dalby, didn't they, in a couple of games, and that didn't quite work at the start of the season. And then there was the Wimbledon game where Palmer was playing up front with sort of Lee and McLean kind of just off to the side, two and then two in the middle. And I've just kind of contradicted myself because he did sort of change the formation for that, but it was still five at the back. He always keeps that defensive shape, just to sort of the middle is was tweaked for a couple of games, but they were like the exceptions to the rule, really, weren't they? Rather than it being how he always sets up.
I'm hearing Steve Martin's The Jerk right now, where he's like,
the only thing I need is this. I don't need this or this. This ashtray. And this paddle game. The ashtray and the paddle game, and that's all I need. And this remote control. The ashtray and the paddle game and the remote control, and that's all I need.
The list just keeps on growing. You're like, he never changes it. Well, except for this time where he changed it. And then except for this one where he changed it. But I mean, there's that home cooking, that comfort food where there is some confidence to having that formation, that structure. This is going to sit here that we can build upon. And if you're going to rotate some people, if you're going to change up some of the things mid-game or in the attack and the defense, the core and the foundation that you're sitting on is still typically the same formation. That structure is still pretty much the same, which I would imagine helps players in knowing where they need to be on the field and not getting completely like discombobulated. And I think it was it Jones this last game or something where Tom O'Connor, where he kept on drifting out of position. And I think Mark made a comment about it during the game and said, they've switched up their position slightly, but Tom O'Connor just keeps on drifting slightly out because it's like, here's where I naturally play, but I'm being asked to do something a little bit different. But then your instincts, your second nature kind of kick in of like, well, when I'm running back down the field, I know this is where I normally go. And when I'm running up the field, this is where I normally go. And so I could definitely see where if you're trying to change up everything too often, you're just going to confuse players and it's going to be chaos out there. So you have to have some type of structure to a foundation for the team to sit on. That being said, I'm going to be bold and say something crazy. I'm going to say it's going to be 3-0 that Okonkwo is going to get that third clean sheet. And he's going to be sponsored by a laundry detergent company by the end of this season. You're going to have Okonkwo's clean sheets as a product out. It'll be comparable to OxyClean. I don't know if you guys have that out there, but it's
probably, yeah. We've got OxyClean. I don't buy the branded stuff. I'm a bit of a cheapskate. I just get whatever the
store brand. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You're a chemist. It's all chemically the same, pretty much, anyway, isn't it? So
yeah. You're like, is it an oxidizer? Yes. Okay. Well, then call it whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But yeah, this seems like a great opportunity for us to make a statement when we're being tested, when the team is stressed and strained, and where we have to show more discipline with the cards. And then you have a team who, if we were full-fledged, I would be more confident coming into this game. But getting a draw wouldn't be the end of the world, but we definitely do want the 3 points. And I'll say maybe we put it together. Maybe we put it together and grab those 3 points. And I'm going to be rooting for the Okonkwo clean sheet, getting his third clean sheet, and looking at the end of the season. We look back to this time and say, you know what, actually, that was a time when we were putting everything together and all those pieces in League Two started to slide into place to where they needed to be.
I'm in the same boat as you, Ran. I thought watching the Mansfield game, I thought, yeah, this is. I know for a draw it seems ridiculous, but I thought, yeah, it's starting to. I felt like it was starting to click now. It's like, and the Crawley game really cemented it. And Yeah, Okonkwo, he's a phenom, mate. I'm really enjoying watching him at the moment. Hopefully, you can keep it up.
That American optimism is rubbing off on you.
I'm quite optimistic for a football fan. I've got my cynical side, but I am quite optimistic for a football fan generally. Yeah, I fancy as well. I'll go with my traditional 2-1. I always say 2-1, so let's
just go 2-1. Well, okay. So things that I have learned today is that the kind of Hollywood buyout of the team has been done before in different ways, and that Salford might be spelled Salford, but it's pronounced Manchester for some reason. As a team, their colors bounced around. Maybe they didn't lock into immediate colors, but there was definitely a theme to what colors they would be represented by the ownership that moved in 2014. They've had 3 promotions, so they are an ambitious team that is still pushing the ball forward. I don't know if they've spent more money than us in the prospective seasons, if you're going to a ratio per unit per season, but they've spent a good number of money. I think in 2022, they had losses of 18.9 or 19.8 million, I believe. Jeez. And so we have lessons to learn from them, but also not really any bad blood that's been built up between them outside of them stealing our fans and copying and pasting them into their publicity and promotional material. So I imagine we're going to see more of those memes leading up into the match. Probably see some memes if we win, some memes after the match that include some of that iconic pictures and photography. And from Salford's perspective, they may not like us. They might not like us like everybody else does for the Hollywood FC. And they might not like us if our takeover has done a little bit better by the town and the city as opposed to their takeover. But all in all, on the burgers to the face scale, I don't even know. Is there even any burgers to the face? This
bit of lettuce, maybe. just take the lettuce out of one of them and throw it in.
There is a vegan burger to the face. No, not even the patty, just the lettuce. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I think that I'm optimistic, and I hope that we can capture this little clip, and later on to the end of the season, we can rejoice in our blind optimism and not naivete.
When we get relegated, Ran, this whole podcast will just be deleted. You know, it won't have existed.
Oh, we needed that cynicism. It's the balance in the force. You cannot let the balance get out of control. Well, Bill, thanks so much again for spending your hard time lending it here to help teach us how to Wrexham, the Salford way, the long shift all night long. One last thing. Before the last game started, there was some music in between the players, and the very last song that played before the game started was All Night Long by Lionel Richie. And I don't know if you heard that or not, but
for the Crawley game.
Yeah, for the Crawley game.
I didn't notice it. No.
Yeah. Oh, and I so bad. I was like, I wish I was by Bill right now. They're starting off the game with All Night Long is the last song they're playing before it starts. But yeah. Well, thank you, Bill. Have a great night, and talk to you soon. And up the town.
Oh, mate.